I had a lot of technical issues in the last meeting, so. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hui o te committee hāpuri ahure me ngā rangapū. I tēnei rā, i te Kaunihera o Te Awa Kairangi. Welcome everybody to today's committee. Before we get underway, I think we've got the Mayor coming through on live stream. And if we could just have a quick read of the emergency procedures. And just while you're doing that, I ask that you put your mobile phones on silent. Thank you. I'll just ask for the karakia to be put up on the screen, and please feel free to join in. Ino e tātou, kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea ngaro, ki runga ki tēnā o tātou, kia māhia te hua mā kihi, ki toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, kia tuturu, kia whakamaua, kia tēnā, hui e, tāi ki e. Thank you, everybody. I have received no apologies. And we've got a full house, so we will, therefore we'll get into public comment. So when you come forward, you've got 3 minutes to speak, and if we've got time, the members will ask some questions as well. So I welcome you, Pam. Please come forward, Pam Henna. No mai haere mai, you know how it works, Pam. So you're speaking to item 8, Petone Grandstand options. Thanks, Pam.
Kia ora koutou, Madam Chair, councillors. Ko Pam Henna oho. Yes, a slight change of topic for me today, because in the Hutt City Council proposed district plan that submissions have now closed on, there is a new heritage area introduced, and that's to do with the Petone grounds and Grandstand. And this is the document that spells out the significance of the grounds and the Grandstand. And those of you on the District Plan Review Committee will know that the heritage parts of that district plan became legal requirements as soon as it was promulgated. As neither of the options proposed take this into account, I think you need to defer any decision and take some time to consider ways that Hutt City Council can honour one of its own heritage areas. I can't help but mention the Wharf. Thank you to the officers for continuing liaison in today's paper about the Wharf. Kia ora.
Thank you, Pam. Elected members, do we have any questions? Kia ora, thanks, Pam. Can I welcome forward, now I've got 3 speakers that are going to come forward together, I understand. So it's Hayden O'Toole, Murray Chalmers and Steve Turner from Petone Rugby. Welcome.
It's just me, sorry.
Oh, it's just you. Oh, okay. Hayden.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got 3 minutes, Hayden, and if we've got time, we'll ask you some questions after it.
Cool, thank you. Kia ora, I'm Hayden, the new chair of the Petone Rugby Football Club and lifelong Petone resident. Just wanted to speak in support of saving the Petone Grandstand. It's of huge historical importance to the area and a cultural and physical icon to the people of Petone. Every week, year-round, hundreds, sometimes thousands, descend on the Petone Rec to enjoy sports, support their friends and whānau. The Grandstand and changing rooms play host to junior and senior sports people from the Hutt Valley and wider Wellington region. And provide perfect facilities where athletes can change and shower. The stand, which has been closed for 3 years now, offers a special covered viewing area shielded from the elements, allowing supporters, especially older members of the community and young families, to comfortably watch their loved ones and local teams. We're happy with the thorough reporting that Council has done to date on the earthquake strengthening and the condition of the stand. We support the Council's document on the historical importance of the area, the heritage doc Pam was talking about. And And we fully support the Hutt City Parks Committee's proposal for option 1 to fully repair and re-strengthen the grandstand. With all 3 options, including demolition in the same kind of ballpark cost-wise, it's a sensible option. Obviously, there's a shortfall above the generous allocation from the council. Our local clubs do have a small army of volunteers, tradespeople, engineers who'd be happy to roll their sleeves up and help. But the escrow option at the moment is a bit of a stretch. Like so many other clubs out there, times are tough. But final working plans and more accurate pricing, we could have a conversation. Maybe when the project goes to tender, I might have a bit more detail around final figures. The proposal to redevelop or potentially demolish the grandstand threatens not only a piece of local heritage, but also risks marginalising the many who depend on its facilities for sport, recreation and social engagement. The positive benefits of sport, especially for our youth, are numerous and well known. There are costs to repair, but there's also opportunities. With Wellington franchises moving away from Sky Stadium, Petone's central location, combined with Jackson Street's bars, restaurants, 2 train stations and bus routes, a functional stand gives us the opportunity to host provincial teams in the future, giving a much needed boost to local businesses and hospitality in the Lower Hutt area. Petone's grandstand is more than just a structure, it's a hub of community spirit. It represents decades of local sporting history and has been a cornerstone for fostering community connection and encouraging active lifestyles since the original stand was built in 1899. From rugby and league, club and representative matches, high school fixtures, marching competitions, school athletics fairs, referees association meetings, cricket, the grandstand supports a diverse range of activities, helping to build camaraderie and promote physical well-being among people of all backgrounds and all ages in our community. Please protect this taonga and ensure it continues to serve our community in Hutt City for future generations.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, members? Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Hayden, for coming in. Taking on your point that you're the new chair of the rugby club, when we did our long-term plan, initially we had more budget put for the grandstand, but it was put to this council that the priority for Petone, including supported by the rugby club, was for the Wharf, to get more funding and therefore reduce the funding for the stand. And so just wanted to clarify with yourself and the kind of club, has it been a change in stance, or, you know, because obviously the direction we received was to actually reduce the budget, and now there's a challenge around the budget when initially that would have not been a problem if we hadn't made that allocation change in the long-term plan?
Yeah, that was probably before my time, but obviously I fully support the Wharf, Pam. Yeah, that was before I was chair, so unsure of the priority there.
And then just one more question if I can, Chair. And so you're saying obviously the club's a bit stretched at the moment and wouldn't want to be taking on the asset on the grandstand for yourselves or any of the other clubs that utilise the park. There's a bit of a challenge for us as well that if we don't have the funding to do the whole project, then we're unlikely to go out to tender for the project because we can't implement it. Yeah. And so has there been any discussion with the wider clubs that utilise the park around a collective ownership of that asset and how that may be transferred over to you if you wished?
It's definitely something we've talked about. The majority see it as a bit too big a risk. If it's the only option, it's definitely something we'll consider and have to have a special general meeting. But yeah, we have discussed it, yeah.
Other questions? And I welcome in the Mayor. Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for coming in, Hayden. Councillor Briggs has just taken away one of my questions about, there are other code users of the Petone Rec as well too. But I'll just throw this one out, just for my own clarity. You've suggested that you're a little bit squeezed. I see that there's 2.8 there and there's probably about another 2, but you don't know what the costs are, the future costs after that. How would that, you need to know what those figures are before you proceed or otherwise, is that what you're asking us?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Briggs, one more.
Thank you. And just on that, I think that's a bit of the challenge for us as well, that depending on what the option is that's proceeded with, We don't know what the maintenance costs would be either, because it would depend on what's required, what the specifications are, how it's implemented. Would then have an overlay of what the cost would be. And so until that's kind of refined down and procurement takes place, those will be unknown numbers to us as well. But happy to ask the officers when they come up. But has there been any discussion with the other clubs in Petone Rugby around what your kind of capacity is to maintain the facility if there was remediation done, and what that kind of budget would be?
We haven't really talked about the maintenance side of things in detail, but we do have all the clubs around the rec have a pretty good Dad's Army system. So smaller maintenance things are easy. Obviously, bigger structural stuff would be a concern. But yeah, like I said, we do have an army of volunteers who are always keen to help out and do the odd job.
Thank you, Hayden. And do we have a question from Deputy Mayor Lewis? Yeah. If you just stay there for one more second, and you've got a question from Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Kia ora, Hayden. So understanding that there's numbers here by council that's looking at what we've got to spend and what Councillor Briggs has said, we don't know the ongoing budget either. And if the club doesn't know, would delaying this decision now to get further information, and by the sounds of it, for the club to have further conversations with other clubs to see what the potential is if there is, a way down the track. Would that be something that you'd be open to doing, like delayed, come back with more information?
Yep, that sounds good. I suppose what we don't want is this to just go on and on and on. It's already been a while, so yeah, happy to get figures locked in a bit more accurately, but we definitely would like to see something kind of start in the not too distant future, if possible.
Thank you, Hayden. And welcome to your new role. Could I please call forward Mike Fisher, Chair of the Petone Community Board and from the Petone Steering Group. Speaking to item 8, the grandstand. It's yours, Mike.
Kia ora, and thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, actually I've had to rethink some of the things I was going to say because Hayden and Pam have already covered them quite nicely. So just to reiterate, as the Community Board and as a member of the steering group, I've been involved for a long time with these various meetings, and it seems to crystallise now with the options, and clearly option 1 as written on page 90 is the preferred option, as you've heard. With the new recommendations you've got in front, 3A and B, clearly no one is in favour of 3A demolition. And 3B is a possibility, but as you've heard, there's a number of questions that still need to be quantified for all parties, the council and obviously the rugby club and other clubs, because it may be that with in-house support, fundraising, which we've mentioned before, there's a huge community groundswell, I'm sure, that would be happy to come to the party in some form, might cover that figure, but we just simply don't know what any shortfall might be. So deferral, as the Deputy Mayor has just suggested, to allow time for the club at the very least to go back and consult with its members to perhaps get more information, and also for council officers to do that, would seem to be a very good solution at this point. I guess it's worth flagging that we obviously wouldn't want too much of our little pot of money there to be spent on endless consulting, and yes, we do need to make a decision, and preferably, in this council's term, in the remaining time of your term, because we don't, as Hayden said, want it dragging on forever. But I do feel a deferment just to get some more information at this point would be useful for all parties, so that a really informed decision can be made. And just on that note, you would expect me to say something slightly humorous. I noticed in today's paper that it's in fact the anniversary of Custer's last stand. We do not want it to be the last stand for the Grandstand. And likewise, I'm sure councillors don't want it to be their last stand if they rush into a decision that, you know, I think we've got this far. If we can just take a little bit more time and get the final result for all parties, it will be a win all round. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I've got a question as chair of the Petone Community Board, that when we were going through the long-term plan and we had the 20 mil cap for the 3 Petone projects, obviously the Wharf, the library and the Grandstand. And we had, as the councillors had the Grandstand set at 5, and even that we thought was a struggle, but it was people involved and the steering group strongly supported this, and the Petone Community Board, that we take 2 from the Grandstand and put that on to get the Petone Wharf, because we had a huge petition at that time, get the Petone Wharf from 10 mil to 12 mil, but we all accepted at the time that these were the capped amounts. Do you agree that that's where we stood because of that year?
Nothing like an easy question. Within that budget of 20, I think as we all agree that the priority would be the Wharf in most people's mind. And then if we were, it's debatable whether it's Grandstand or library. As it stands at the moment, we thought, or the decision that you have made thus far, there was enough money, it looked like, to be very close to covering all projects and getting them under the way. Now, maybe there's some unders and overs, perhaps, in the library, but I think it's just, in layman's terms, although there might be a shortfall on option 1, it's not a huge amount. We're not talking millions and millions and millions. It seems to be something that could be covered in some form, hopefully, at the very least by a community effort. But there is that unknown factor. But I accept that the $20 million figure and the priority for the Wharf, yeah, we would still agree with that. And I think the community would too.
Thank you, Mike. When we go onto the paper, I think it's just worth us remembering, because there were elected members who didn't think that was the right shift, but it did come from Petone. That's the shift change that you wanted. So I just wanted to clarify that before we go on to the paper. Councillor Tupou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Mike. In terms of options under sort of B, you know, the divestment to a charity, do you think that would be quite difficult in today's economic climate? Because from my perspective, we don't want to set up anything to fail. Now, you know the pressures we're facing, local government across the country, with asset maintenance. Is it viable for a non-profit group to be able to take over, remediate and maintain this asset, in your view?
Another easy question. Possibly. I mean, there are so many unknowns with that. Exactly what would be the amount of control that body would have over the use of the stand and the facilities? Who would pay for exactly what with the rest of the ground? There's a lot of things that I wouldn't understand about that would need to be absolutely clarified and then go through the process of you know, agreement with the clubs, etc. So it is possible. I would think, as Hayden touched on, it is such a centrally located ground for transport, for other services before and after the game. There's a desirability factor with it that could mean that the economics of taking on something are feasible. But that would require someone a bit above my pay grade to work out, if that answers the question.
Thank you, Mike. So I'll call forward now Murray Gibbons, who's please come forward, Murray, speaking to item 9 on the Parks and Reserves work plan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you've got
Greetings.
3 minutes, Murray.
Yes. I'd like to introduce Brett Gorn, who is also part of the organising committee of what I'm doing with the jailhouse in Eastbourne. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the support of Councillor Lewis' proposed amendment in relation to the Eastbourne lockup building. I am speaking with the support of the Eastbourne Community Board, the Historical Society of Eastbourne, the Police Museum in Pororua, the iwi on the land which we picked up the jail from, who owned it, and I have the support of David Watt from Heritage New Zealand, as well as tourism consultant David Blandford. We want the historical lockup building to be saved, restored, and relocated at the proposed site near Rona Bay Wharf. I will set up a trust fund to do this and maintain the building into the future. But for a number of reasons, the building needs to be owned by the Hutt City Council. The amendments to the officer's recommendation proposed by Councillor Lewis will achieve this. I believe I have more than sufficient community support to raise funds, provide volunteer labour, etc. And we also have interest expressed in the project from Weta Studios, and paint manufacturers want to supply us with free paint to get the job done. I'm prepared to make a personal commitment of money of $20,000 to kickstart this trust fund. You may think I've won lotto, but I'm just bloody determined, and it's been 8 years. The only thing stopping this is the council's approval to allow the building to be moved to the proposed site and the council to take ownership of the building. I understand that the reasons behind the council's recent asset management possibly not to take on ownership of new assets like this will be that it doesn't want the ongoing costs of the assets managed. My proposal for the trust fund is to remove these ongoing costs and asset management costs for council, which means the council can now take ownership, in this case, of the building. In essence, for this project to proceed, I'm asking council to agree to own the building. To summarise, the Eastbourne Heritage Trail will have a feature point that's the crown and the jewel back at the entrance of Rona Bay Wharf and the village. It will be the anchor and a thrill for visitors by cyclists and walkers alike, and reinvigorate the vibrancy of our village. I know what I've forgotten. In conclusion, I would like to say what makes this lockup unique. And thanks to some smart detective work by Petone, Heritage Society, we managed to track down the charge sheet of the prisoner who, including mugshots, from the graffiti he wrote on the inside of the wall in 1911. Ernest Matthews, alias John Jones, born London, England, in 1st of February 1880. Died in Palmerston North in 1938. 41 convictions, mainly for swearing, drunken and disorderly, theft. My kind of guy, really. I think I'll now read you a report from the Wairarapa Times Age from Tabor's class, which I've just left over here. This is the last bit. This is from Wairarapa Daily Times in 1st of April 1916. At the Magistrates Court in Carterton yesterday, Ernest Matthews, alias John Jones, was sent to prison for a month for assault. It appears the man, who had been in army camp for a time but was passed out as medically unfit, was been about the town for a day or two and was endeavouring ostensibly to obtain assistance to get back to Wellington. He'd been helped by the Patriotic Society but got drinking. He went to the Temperance Society boarding house in the afternoon and made himself at home, but was requested by the proprietors to leave because he wasn't a boarder. He turned upon her, chased her into the room. The police were called, and with some difficulty, he was locked up. Now, we want to put this on the outside of the building. This is what makes this little building so unique, and it's not going to cost you a great deal of money, if any at all. So I'm begging you to say yes, Murray, go ahead.
Thank you for that in-depth description, Murray. Any quick questions?
Tui
And then we'll
wanted
move
to buy this
we've got
t-shirt.
time for one question. Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Murray. Always entertaining and a bit of a highlight when you come in, mate. My question is just getting clarity around why you wouldn't want the trust to own and have full control over the building itself, noting that councils over time, elections come and go, and priorities can change as well. So even if there's a commitment today, that may change in the future. And if what you're wanting is long-term security, why wouldn't it sit in the trust control so that you can ensure it's there in perpetuity?
Okay. We tried to get the trust through the control of the Historical Society, and it was just too awkward. And on the advice of a lawyer, he said, well, you can set up a trust yourself. And we're going to ask George Tuffin of the Eastbourne, Historical Community Trust, if he'll act as banker, and that will satisfy everyone, and we hope so. But it was just getting too awkward, and I'm just fed up with bloody waiting, so let's all go. I mean, with Burden's Farm coming on stream, it's going to be a lot more exciting tourist attractions around our side of the harbour and the city.
Perhaps if I can just answer that question. If it's owned by another party, then there has to be a lease, because there's a private party occupying council land. That lease has public liability quite a lot of onerous costs that go on every year, and also the council will have to administer that lease. So we believe that if the council owns the building, it's a council building on council land, so that all of those things fall away. So the only issue then is there any cost to council to do the building up and maintain it? And we're proposing the solution that there isn't, and the cost of ownership to council is negligible or nothing. Because all those...
Thank you. I think we'll move along. We've got a couple of more speakers, and thank you, Murray, for raising the assets. I think we'll have a little bit more to talk about the asset management plan when we come on to this item. So thank you very much. I'll call forward, she's on, Jen, you're on Zoom. So I'll ask you to turn your camera on and go off mute, and you're going to talk to item 9. You've got 3 minutes, Jen.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Jen Hooper, and I am the founder and lead of Changing Places New Zealand, which is a charity that creates very high specification public bathrooms for people like my own daughter that can't use the facilities that are standardly available. So I'm thanking you really very much for inviting me in to speak today, bearing in mind I'm not from Hutt. I'm based in Hamilton. I'm currently in Auckland with meetings, but so thanks for having me here. My original conversations with Hutt about a Changing Places stem back from 2019. And then subsequent to that, I had an awful lot to do with the lovely Stephen Keatley, who is now not part of your council, and created for him plans for the Bay Street block. Originally, before Stephen Keatley, it was there was talk about putting a Changing Places into the back of the Dow's Museum. And for various reasons, I'd sort of said that wasn't actually, it wasn't even, it wasn't effective, and it was really certainly wasn't cost effective with no services being there. It's segregated, and for various reasons. I then jumped in a friend's car and drove around your area and discovered that the Bay Street block that already exists clearly was going to need replacing at some time in the reasonably near future. So we identified that particular block for this project. That makes it more cost effective, of course, as well. If you're bowling one that needs to be replaced and you're not doing a separate Changing Places all on its own, the costs all come down. So in September of 2021, I was asked by Stephen Keatley to provide plans for whether the Bay Street block was being renovated because of some historic value, or whether it was going to be knocked out completely and rebuilt. So the plans that I provided him were good for both. And it's just been recently told to me by Stefan Titz that the plan at the moment is to go ahead with something like it, but not use the changing places in our official network. And I guess that's what I want to speak in support of here, especially given the timing that just last week we opened our first official changing places in the Greater Wellington region, which was in central Wellington. We do, all of our rooms have very, very high cost and technical equipment that can be harmful to public and be harmed by public if they don't know what they're doing. All changing places, which is an international family, are locked all over the world. We here in New Zealand choose to use a registered user electronic tag system, which is this. And it's a little bit of the Lord of the Rings, one tag to rule them all. This one tag with a $150 per lifetime membership fee will get the users that need these rooms into any room we ever build. Bearing in mind you've got one now in central Wellington, it kind of makes more and more sense, hopefully, for you to come back to the idea of Bay Street being one of our within our nationwide network. Sorry if I'm fumbling a little bit. I didn't know I was actually going to be
Thank
doing
you, Jen.
this.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up where the bell's gone. So if you can just cover off your final statement.
Yeah, look, I guess the main part for me is really that if you do try and do something that's like ours but not, you're going to run into a lot of problems that you don't actually realise exist. So how do you determine who needs it and who doesn't? This does that for you. How do you collect data, which this also does, on how often cleaners and everything come through and who might have vandalised it or whatever, which hasn't happened yet, touch wood. Identifying the room. There's never going to be a million of these rooms in this country. The people like me that care for profound, complex need people need to know where they are. The nationwide network instructs that, and so does the trademark logo. So you could build a fabulous room, but nobody's going to know it exists. And it won't get the promo. So there's huge benefits and really not very much more cost doing it the official way.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. We're going to go on to the next speaker. We've run out of time for questions, so I'm going to ask Karen. Thank you very much for tuning in, Jen, and I'll ask Karen Fisher to come forward.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're speaking to item 8, Karen, Petone Grandstand. 3 minutes is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So good afternoon. I'm here today not only as a lifelong Petone resident, but as Secretary of the Petone Rugby Football Club. So my preference for the grandstand is option 1. I support obviously the Petone Rugby Club's stance and also the Petone Community Board stance. If there needs to be more looked into it, I would prefer a deferment and obviously that be looked at, but we don't want to delay too long. We've had long enough now, we've had lots of reports. Let's just get what needs to be done, and please, we just need to get on with hopefully restoring and refurbishing our grandstand. With Mike and I, our oldest daughter plays cricket for Petone. Our younger son plays rugby for Petone. We're at the rec all the time. You know, it'd be great to use the grandstand again. It's not only historic, but it's for our well-being, for older people, for anyone, but also especially for younger people. We want to see more people out playing sport, more people watching, getting them off, computers, getting them outside. As the mental well-being and friendships and loyalty and partnerships, that they make a lifelong. And, I know you think, well, can a grandstand do all of that? But it is part of it. being all together, supporting whatever, if it's an event or sports, I think it's just really important. So just short and sweet, option one, if there needs to be deferment, please don't leave it too long.
Thank you, Karen. Just a quick question. When you say deferment, do you mean to the next long-term plan? Because these were amounts that were made as caps, you know, like that we had no more, and the allocation came from the steering group. If we defer, it won't be any more than the 3 mil cap.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, deferment is in if you need to get more information before you make the final decision.
Yep, thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions? No, thank you, Karen. Okay, so that's we don't have any other members' public comment, so we'll move on to item 4, conflict of interest declaration. Do any members have a conflict today? No? Okay. So we're going to do a precedence of business to move around some items in accordance with Standing Orders 10.4, in accordance precedence in item 8 for the Petone Grandstand options. We're going to bring that forward. Do I need a second for that? No. So we're going to go on to item 8. We'll start with item 8, Petone Grandstand. So I'll call forward Arthur. Please come forward, Arthur Nelson. So we have the report that we've read, but if you have anything further to add, as well as Stefan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chair and councillors. No, I don't have anything other particular to add, except to say that, again, I've been really encouraged by the constructive approach from the Petone Rugby Club and other stakeholders in this particular process. Everyone clearly understands it's a high value. It's got a lot of merit culturally and heritage-wise in people's minds. People accept that, but they still accept that, you know, we do have to move on and try and do something with it. So other than that, happy to take questions.
Questions, members? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Arthur. And just listening to the submitters who came in today, there was a request for a deferment to find out how much those costs are, those unknown costs are, and also a request to let's make sure that we don't defer it any longer than it has already been deferred. Any idea how long it would actually take to get those costs together so that decisions can be made fairly quickly?
Would you be referring, again, sorry, through you, Chair, are you referring to costs of running it as a rate was raised in the speakers' conversations before, or costs of the additional reports?
Cost of the additional reports, the unknown things.
Yeah, there is a number of others and that do need to be done. One of those, interestingly enough, was raised earlier under the new operative plan. The area has been identified as a heritage area, so one of the ones we're going to have to do is a heritage plan. So there is quite a number of other plans to be done. We have got a budget this year, this coming year, for 6 million, I think was the original plan.
5 million.
Sorry, 5 million, yes. The reports would probably take, I would think, at least 3 to 6 months, at least, including resource consents and so on and so forth.
Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora, through you, Chair. Point 18, option 1, notes that the additional would not include an additional fire escape, which would be included by the Building Act. So my question is, under the options that we've got, what does that end up? How does that end up impacting the use of the building or potential costs? If we've not got the additional fire escape, does that limit the number of people that could use the asset, or yeah?
Yeah, essentially that's the case, and it's probably just worth clarifying something as well, because again, I see that the Save Petone Grandstand, should we say, the process that's been going through talks about demolition. We're not talking about demolition at this point, so I think we just need to clarify that. One of the options was to reduce the seating from 1,200 to 300, which kept the roof, which is the one that's not in that on that petition. That would not necessarily need the fire escape, but regardless of that, the big cost of this job isn't in things like that. That does contribute to it, but the bigger costs are around what we have to do to strengthen the concrete structure, the supporting structures, the and resolve the steel corrosion issues. That's why the three options are very similar, because those are the big costs. So I think just worth clarifying, as I say, there's nothing in here that suggests a demolition would be $3 million. We haven't even got there yet. We're just saying that the three options were, as I say, full remediation, reduced seating, and the other one was to take the top off the grandstand and see if we could do something else. So I think just worth clarifying that. But that would be the issue. It's not so much those things, they have got costs, but the big costs are in those refurbishment and repairs.
Just before I hand it to Deputy Mayor Lewis, you mentioned about the heritage. When we were making our decisions, we made those decisions in the knowledge of, from the district plan, the changes, and priority was given to the heritage value of the wharf at the time, not the grandstand, because we did know that at the time. Is that right?
My understanding is that the current proposal has it as a heritage area. I think that's what was being said, which then means we would need to do a heritage report to deal with that particular aspect.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you for that question. My question is around the money that has been identified as 3091 for option 1 at the moment. Does the bulk of that money, would that do the structural repair needed to hold the building up?
Again, it's a little bit like length of string query. We don't know what we're going to come up against until we start work on it. There are a number of other reports that do need to be done. And again, nobody's keen on doing these things, but if you want to make sure that the building is fit for purpose and isn't going to cause problems in the future, then we do need to do those things as well. The other thing that's of some concern, from my perspective, is the 15% contingency, and the stakeholders that I spoke to last week or the week before were aware at that point that it's flagged at 15%. That's pretty low, particularly for an old building like that. So yes, in essence, the quantity assessment and the quantity survey says that's the figure. The engineer is reasonably confident in those figures, but that doesn't take account of probably another 5, 6 or 7 other bits of reports we've got to do, and what else we might find in the process. So it's a little bit difficult. It's one of those with a risk.
Further question?
Thank you, and I've got a tickle in my throat right now. Sorry. So assuming the $3 million, just bear with me, that you could start the structural work. We've got the money to start the structural work, and then we've got another long-term plan that it would be maintenance, and that you've saved the structure with $3 million, and then it comes in, you look at the rest, and it could be, I don't know, I'm being hypothetical now, can we start the structural work to hold the building up and spend the bulk of that on holding the building?
Being brutally honest, no. I think it's too much of a risk. There would be absolutely no point in having a half-finished building and then we had a major issue, or if we get to a half-finished position and then there is an earthquake or something else. I think we need to have the budget, and we've not talked about additional budgets because that's not what we were asked to look at, which is why the other options in this report refer to the divestment and the potential, and again, it's not demolition, it's replacement with a newer but smaller structure. But I would not be 100% keen to say, yes, we could start structural works on the understanding that we may be able to carry it on into the next LTP.
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Arthur. And so just wanting to get some clarity and advice on the way forward. And so we're now currently at $2.8 million left of the $3 million of the budget, because we spent 200K on the investigative work. What we've heard today in public comment is a request for more investigative work, which will likely then reduce that $2.8 million down further. At what point is it better to make a clear delineation between, is council going to own the asset or is the community through a trust or through the clubs? Because surely in my mind as well, whoever owns it is going to have clear specifications, therefore any costings and any procurement process is best led by that organisation, because they then compare the actual cost rather than a hypothetical cost. So at which point do we kind of stop, do no further work to make a clarity on who's going to own the asset going forward, in your view?
Well, you know, as has been covered previously, at the start of this process, 3 million was the allocated budget. Yes, we spent 200,000. The work and the other work we've got in front of us is probably another 400,000 in terms of reports and so on and so forth. So we're probably at that point now, unless council were to do something completely different, then we probably need to get a view from council where we're going with this subject. We could always get more. We could always get more reports and get more information. But as you've rightly indicated, we would essentially be taking that off the overall budget that we've got at the moment, which would reduce it for the work slated further down the track.
And so, for my clarity, so if that work was to proceed and approximately 400,000 additional spent on that work, what would we actually know more than we know now today?
I'll just probably hand over to Stefan, because he's probably a bit more aware of the details of the additional reporting that needs to be done.
Kia ora. We have received an indicative price from an engineer for the additional investigation. Put a figure out for the CSI, means it's additional from the footings, figured with 50,000 around. That is only that. We received as well other additional indicative figures, which includes cost for detailed design development, which cost indicates tender process from the structural engineer, other experts consultation figures. We calculated the 15% contingency towards the 25% contingency, and we received an offer from our planner, or one of the planner, for looking into all requirements based on the heritage report related for potential consent and a resource consent application. So the figures, what we have received as a very high level indicator figures, gives us a budget which is missing around 900,000.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify that also includes, now I've got the list that Stefan produced, so I'll just read out very broad, and these are very broad sort of figures. So the additional investigations to determine the structural, and this isn't the actual building itself, this is the support pillars, 50,000, as Stefan mentioned. Structural design review based on the findings, 15,000. Structural design and documentation for building consent, 20,000. Other related consultants, in relation to things like heritage and so on and so forth, 45,000. So, there's a reasonably significant list of relatively small figures. But as you put those figures together, that's where it builds up. The biggest one in here would be if we lifted the contingency from 15% to 25%, that would be about $270,000 worth. So like I say, we don't have any, and I've got to be really careful what I say here, because these are not absolutely spot on figures. These are very rough estimates that have been provided for us by and large by the structural engineer on what these things might cost. but they also indicated the sort of things that he may need. So, you know, it's not quite as simple as just 100,000 here or 200,000 there. I mean, we would need to go away and we would need to assess it properly, and then we could come back and report back and give you a better idea what it might cost. I don't think we're really in a position to do that right now. As I say, we've given you a couple of headline costs there, but I think it would be difficult to say, oh, it's just 100,000 here or 200,000 there. We don't know the magnitude of that at this point. And older buildings are certainly more difficult to remediate than, you know, knocking a thing down and redoing it again. And certainly when we've done these sort of things in the past, the figures have been 25%, not 15%. So we're keeping it really tight at the moment.
Thank you. And these figures are based on when you had a meeting the other night and you were asked to go away and get some more information to provide for today to investigate more option one.
Yeah, essentially it was just to try and get, should we say, a ballpark
Yep.
On what it might cost. And again, with all these things, it's you can read too much into it. You know, 2.1, yeah, maybe that, or it may not be that. We can only go with what is put in front of us from the professionals who do this thing on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. So just seeking some clarity for myself. The prices and the budgets that we've been given so far do not include all of these reports, or they do include most of these reports, or they include some of them?
If we were to go forward and do all these, those would be additional to what we've spent at the moment. So the heritage report, we haven't covered off yet. So that would need to be done. And these other aspects would be required prior to doing the physical works. So the work we've done thus far is primarily around the initial concrete structure, the impacts of corrosion, the initial concept drawings, and those things. So the broad sort of swath of work that allowed us to come back with the options, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff underneath that needs to be done.
I might just get you to clarify, Andrea, between the paper and the meeting that happened the other night.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the paper that you are looking at was done before the community meeting, and so there might be some confusion with that. And so the paper includes costs, estimates that are for the construction cost of the seismic strengthening only. So that's what those costs are. Because they are all outside of the available $3 million budget, when you think about the money that's already been expended, they have not been put forward as options because officers were asked to look at options within that $3 million. And so the options that you're looking at today are not those options. In the interim, there was a community meeting where these options were presented. And at that meeting, members of the community asked officers if they could do a little bit more work to confirm what the additional costs might be on top of the seismic strengthening numbers. What would the additional work be for option one? Because that's the option that the community were interested in. And that was to support a conversation around the potential divestment of the Grandstand to community. And we heard that today, that they would like to know a bit more about what the actual cost might be before they can seriously consider whether that's a possibility. So Arthur's just been talking about some of that work that's been done, and he's said, you know, we need to be careful with the numbers because they are very rough order costs at this point. But the work that they've done since the community meeting suggests it's around about another $990,000 for the actual cost of the project on top of what's in the paper. So those figures are not represented in the paper.
Okay, so if we have no further questions, I'm going to put the motion forward. Deputy Mayor Lewis?
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
I think we'll put the motion forward first, and if it's voted down, then you may put in an amendment. So I'm going to move the motion. If we could just put the recommendations up on the screen, and I'm going to read them out. Recommend that the committee, 1, receives and notes the report and the update from the community meeting. 2, notes that the initial assessment suggests that all 3 options proposed are outside the initial budget of 3 million identified for the project. 6, direction from the committee on how to proceed. Why is that crossed out? Okay. Yep. Okay. So option B, consider divesting the remaining budget and structure to a non-profit community organisation, sports clubs based at the ground, under a development agreement that required the organisation to complete the remediation rehabilitation of the structure to council specification and manage and maintain it thereafter under a lease agreement. For that reason, that the Long-Term Plan Annual Planning Committee, May 2024, allocated an overall budget of 3 million for the development and strengthening of the grandstand, including the toilets and changing rooms. 200,000 of that was allocated in 2024-25 to develop options for the grandstand and identify likely strengthening costs. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. Is there any debate or discussion? No?
Just wishing to seek some clarification, Chair. So the decision that we're making today is asking officers to go and investigate this. We are not actually signing off on the disinvestment at this point. Yeah.
To investigate.
Okay.
Yep.
Follow-up point. I'm not sure that the text actually correctly conveys that, and I'm just wondering if it needs to be amended slightly.
Do we need to amend that just to investigate? We'll just take a minute. We're just going to get this clarified and then on this, and then we'll come back. Just while we're doing that, I'm just going to, Mayor Barry, have you got
It was a suggestion, but you might be across it. It was just around changing considers to investigate and something that talks about reporting back would cover it.
Yep. We'll just take a minute to update that. I'll call everybody back. Yep. So we'll just get it up on screen. So the B is getting changed to 3, and we've changed there to investigate divesting the remaining. And at the end, there'll be a report back. Yep, so we've got a seconder. Is there any debate or discussion? Deputy Mayor Lewis?
Just discussion. So in this investigation of this, all parties will be involved and all the numbers that were presented here will be involved as well, presented to everybody, all parties that are interested.
To report back? Yeah, yep. Is that your discussion, Deputy Mayor Lewis?
Yeah, just that's a question really. Thank you.
Okay. So, before we vote on that, I'm just going to add that I think investigating and incoming back's a good and fair option, so that the community can decide what position they play. I just want to reiterate that the Petone projects has been a really long process, and around the table we made a very big commitment to work with community to get to our decisions. And at the time, there was a lot of discussion over whether these were the right amounts. Some of us had concerns that the grandstand wasn't at the amount it should be, but with the input, and this was from the driving from Petone, this is the amount and the capped amount, and I think this is where we are now. So we need to keep moving forward, but I think we're all of the very strong position that this is going to be a capped amount of $3 million. So thank you. So I've put the motion forward. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? I declare the motion carried. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the next item. People are here for the grandstand. Feel free to leave, and thank you for your input. So we're going to go to item 9, and then we'll wind back to the others, which is on page 92 of the agenda, so that we can cover off Murray while you're here. So I'll hand it over to you, Arthur, if you've got any comments, further comments to make from the report.
Not at this point, Chair. I'd say Murray is very passionate about this. And we understand that, but clearly we have got, should we say, challenges in assets. So we just need to get some clarification on where council wants to go with it.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Tupou.
Just a question through you, Madam Chair, for Arthur, and that was a very thorough report that was commissioned independently. Is there anything preventing this, if such a trust is established in acquiring or being able to set up, that jail cell?
No, we do plenty of other arrangements with trusts and people on council land. So, if the trust was to own the building, then wouldn't necessarily be a problem for us.
Any further questions? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. One of the concerns that came up with public liability insurance as a significant ongoing cost. Do you have an idea as to how much that would be for an organisation?
I don't. What I can say is a lot of our lessees are finding severe challenges with insurances of various kinds, whether that be public liability, whether that be replacement insurance after earthquakes or something like that. It's clearly an issue for people out there, but council taking on just shifts that cost over to council. I couldn't comment on what implication that would have in terms of council's general insurance funding. We'd have to speak to insurance about that, but there's always an effect or something that comes after something like this. So if council were to take that, then council's costs would increase. But generally speaking, they are a problem insurance-wise for a whole bunch of these community organisations, trusts, and other groups.
So Arthur, I've got a question on that. We have all agreed to an assets management plan because our assets coming to the end of life, and there's many of them. If we take this asset on, what do we remove, or will we have to remove another asset to take this on?
I mean, this is not a particularly large asset, so whether it have any significant impact, I don't know. But again, the problem with a lot of these things is lots of people locally feel very passionate about these sort of things. I mean, originally, not that long ago, we came here and we were talking about doing some demolition work on Ridderford, on the glass house there and on the Orchid House. Now that has been put to one side. Fraser Park, the original asset plan indicated that we would be looking to demolish Lower Hutt Football Club and the Tighter Club. When the problem with it is people tend to use these spaces, and it's more a problem of them accruing. Unless we come to some view and we actually start making some decisions on them, then where do we stop? So I don't think this particular one would have a massive implication for us, but it does sort of repeat a general position. And people are extremely passionate for very good reasons. But, where does it stop, I suppose? Bearing in mind council's current challenges.
A further question to that is, it's the principle, and there are others that haven't been able to fight to keep their assets because of the principle that we've agreed to around assets. Does this harm that? Again, I mean, the beauty of democracies is that people can obviously come forward with their pet projects and so on and so forth. Obviously, the less, if we commit to doing something and then don't do it, then obviously that opens the gate a little bit more, I think, for other people to come forward with other options. So it's just a case that at some point we do need to decide whether we're going to keep some of these things. And again, like this one, probably won't be a huge issue for us in terms of physical cost. But, there are ongoing renewals costs to provide for. And again, people who set up trusts and so on and so forth may be there for a period. If those people move on or change, then it's that should we say, ethos is not always carried forward. So there's always the possibility that it'll end up back up on council's books at some point in the future, unless there's a really good plan for managing it moving forwards and some sort of sustainability and ongoing management. Thank you. Do we have any further? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. Thank you. That comment about the plan actually leads directly into my next question, and that is, would it be practical to put an MOU in there to cover maintenance and ensure that the maintenance is carried out by the organisation and to a particular standard, and have that in the MOU so that we don't have the asset management itself on the council books, even though we would take on, as you say, relatively minimal in council's scheme of things, insurance costs, etc.
Again, I think perhaps I just need to clarify what I've said there. So we would anticipate that the MOU would have all that stuff in, yes, or any agreement or lease or license would have all that information in. I think I just want to address the asset. I'm not suggesting that we should take it on or it's not going to cost us any money. What I'm suggesting is if council gave direction to take it on, then it probably wouldn't be a huge cost to us in terms, particularly if the trust was managing all the renewals and everything else. But there still is issues around insurance, which I couldn't answer at this point. And obviously, there is a strategic document that says council is looking to lessen its assets and the assets it controls, particularly when those assets aren't necessarily producing maximum outcomes for the community. I'm not saying this wouldn't do, but clearly there is a debate to be had on whether council should continue to take and maintain these assets when that was not the original planner in this particular situation.
Okay, so if we have no further questions, I'm going to move the motion. Could we get it up on the screen? So we receive and note the report. 2, note the risks associated with Parks and Reserves operating budgets, that choices will continue to need to be made between increasing grounds maintenance budgets and reducing service levels. 3, agrees to option 1, paragraph 29 of the officer's report, to decline the community request for council to acquire the historic Eastbourne Police Cell. 4, agrees to option 2, paragraph 35 of the officer's report, to develop a high lighting accessible toilet to our own design on the Bay Street site. Yeah, sorry.
I believe we probably need to amend number 4 to actually read correctly.
Yeah.
I think it's highly accessible.
I think we'll just leave 4 because we haven't actually I'll just wind back actually because we'll bring the two together. Shall I? Just while you're there, Arthur, we'll wind back, just hold the recommendation and we'll have discussion and questions about the accessible toilet, which is also on page 92 of the agenda. We've got the report. Did you have anything further to cover on that, Arthur?
No, not at this point. I think it was discussed reasonably well. Jen's conversation earlier.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. So in the public presentation, one of the things that came up was accessibility and control of accessibility for people who actually need this, as well as management of that. I'm unsure as to whether or not we're talking about utilising our own. I believe the proposal is we're utilising our own design for that, whereas rather than going through the company, how much is it going to cost us to set up a system? How are we going to actually maintain and ensure that the relatively expensive mechanisms that are contained within the toilet are kept safe, but also that it's accessible to the members of the public who need it? The sort of access program that Jen was talking about is pretty freely available on the market. 10, 15 years ago, probably 10 years ago actually, I used to, for one of my things, run Nelson Marina, and we took a very similar system into there, and that's 10, 12 years ago. So yes, and that system did exactly the same thing. You run your card across it, or you put your PIN number in, prints up who that PIN's been aligned to, and how long they've been in there, and so on and so forth. So I don't think the access control is necessarily a problem. There are proprietary plans out there that would do the same thing.
Councillor Brooks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Arthur. Just some clarity around that as well. And so, under public comment, Jen was saying was $150 per user to get their lifetime access card for the nationwide network that they manage. Would there be a cost to any users to access the toilet in Bay Street once we have it installed? And how would we manage that as well? Would it be in-house, or what are you proposing?
I think what we would probably do is, I mean, the general thrust would not be to charge. That would be the first thing. But then clearly that could be discussed annually as part of fees and charges and so on and so forth if council did want to do that. My understanding with the particular changing places scenario is while the card is $150 for people who might want to use it, there are other charges that would come to council. And again, we'd have to clarify this with Jen, but I understand there's a $10,000 establishment fee. I further understand there's a $2,500 access fee for maintaining access to the site. And there is we would be tied in to a particular provider in terms of managing and maintaining the equipment. And in addition to that, there are, council would not have control of what was to happen with that cost. So for some purpose, if that was to suddenly go up, then it's obviously not in our control in that respect. So, I mean, it's an interesting one because, the changing places one does obviously give access across a broad portfolio of toilets, and you heard Jen talk about Wellington and others. If we went for our own sort of approach, then it wouldn't necessarily have that that degree of flexibility for people who want to use it. So there's pluses and minuses, but I think what we're looking at here, as is mentioned in the report, is council is obviously looking to make savings where it can. Using the changing places scenario would create more cost for us as a council, but then that might be something that council are happy to go along with in exchange for the flexibility and use that people may have in other areas.
Okay, we'll keep moving. Okay, last two quick questions.
And so from my understanding, if we go ahead with in-house running of this facility, in the future, there's nothing holding us back from joining up, changing places and paying the establishment fee then, if we saw it as a priority in the future, correct?
That would be my understanding. They seem to accept facilities who meet the criterion. So I'm assuming we could do that at some point in the future.
Okay, last question. Councillor Parkin.
And I think the key voice that is missing from this conversation is those with disabilities. And I'm not hearing that. So, and I'm not seeing it in the report. So what engagement with our disabled communities that need fully accessible bathrooms have we actually had in this project?
We haven't really had that much of a conversation about it. Certainly Stefan's had some conversations with our in-house people, but we're really just at the process of determining whether we want to go with changing places or whether we want to go with our own facility. And obviously, if we decide to go with our own facility, there will be a range of other work that we probably need to do. And maybe I might just get Stefan to comment on that as well, if just bear with me a second.
I think we will, we've got the report, and the report is around the changing places. And when we looked at this at the long-term plan, this was around the changing places was a proven model that works. This, what council's proposing is the same, but taking away the extra costs because of the pressure that we're under because of rates. So unless you've got anything further to add to the report, we're going to move on to the decisions. Sorry, Mayor Barry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think you pretty much covered it off of what we're actually deciding here. And I think Councillor Barrett probably would be able to back me up that the conversations have been for a very long time around an accessibility toilet in the city. So, and I know there has been engagement with different groups over a long period, albeit maybe something not as recent.
Okay, the last question to Councillor Barrett. Yep.
No question, but a comment, Madam Chair, when you're ready.
Okay, so I'm going to move the motion. If we could get that back up, and we will get to 3, which is on, and then we'll vote on that. Can we vote on them separately? Yeah. And then we'll do 4. So 3 is agrees to option 1, paragraph 29 of the office report, to decline the community request for council to acquire the historic Eastbourne Police Cell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. Is there any discussion?
An amendment?
No, we've got to vote this down first. Councillor Tupou.
Just a discussion point, Madam Chair, I will be supporting that motion, but just to note, to wish Murray and the team all the best with your plans and intentions. If the trust is in a position to pull this off, I wish you the best with that. Kia ora.
Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. The reason why I'm seconding and supporting this motion is on the principle that we've all agreed to around our facilities and being strategic with what we do own and divesting back to community where it makes sense. I think it would be going against our own strategic direction to actually take on new assets at this time when we're trying to actually maintain the ones that we currently have. I know Murray has extreme amount of passion and will make this happen. I think having it owned by a trust gives far more life in the building as well, and also more community ownership. It's also likely that community will be able to raise funds and seek funds for the associated costs, including insurance and anything else, noting that there can be significant costs with the challenges of the insurance market for everyone at this point in time. It will also enable the building to be maintained to the standard that Murray and the Trust expects, and there won't be any red tape or bureaucracy in the way for them getting on and doing the good work in the community.
Further comment? Any further comment?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. I'm speaking in opposition to this one, and the reason is the community has already worked with council for the last 7-8 years on this project, and I think there's a bigger picture here. Although we've made this decision on assets, we're not taking any more in. There's things at play. There's the whole Te Pua Horonuku coming in. There's a heritage trail this was the final jigsaw piece to go in, and this is an asset that the community is willing to invest in and make happen and maintain and look after it. And they're just seeking to have an MOU with council to take that one step and go in partnership with them, own that asset, but work with an MOU so they can be connected to this community and council vice versa to make something happen. It's not often you get in a community like this that, they step up and will put their money forward and do the work and the grunt to make something happen that they believe in. And I think it's an asset for our city, and it's just a small thing to do to have an MOU to go forward to allow the people that are helping to make the city a wonderful place. And the heritage trail that's already there is a draw card, and it will grow more with Murray's project. I say Murray's project because he has been the driver of it, but he has got community support. And like you say, Councillor Briggs, this community will support it, but there's little things there that will make it easier. An MOU working to take on the little bit of insurance that would be needed to cover this box, which it is. It's minor in the scheme of things of what Eastbourne and this project have to offer. So I'd like an amendment to it, yeah.
Any further comment? Any further discussion? Councillor Parkin and then Councillor Shaw.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit torn on this one, and it's particularly regarding the police box and the police cell. I think it is a community asset. It is one of those items that is important of historical value. We should be, as council, should be supporting the community. At the same time, I get Councillor Briggs's assessment. We have agreed to divest our assets and put our work and our money where it is most beneficial to the community. We haven't seen an active analysis of how important this is to the community in terms of not from officers. We have had some of that presented by the community. Ultimately, I think we should be finding a way to work with the community to ensure that this works. I can see the challenges that with a community asset, if council take it on, and then the community group folds, we end up with the asset stuck on our books and have work to do. So I can also understand why that is not necessarily the way that we need to go. But I do think that we should be directing officers to continue to work with the community to find a way that works with both. And so I will be voting against this because I think that we do need to continue to work on the methods and just having the option 1 with no further caveat in there is not appropriate.
Thank you. Mayor Barry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I am going to support the recommendation. I would say that in the future, obviously, if there was a proposal for a lease from a community trust organisation to own the asset and for us to lease it out and for that lease arrangement, for there to be clear expectations, I would also support that. So certainly not against the idea. I do think, though, we have for some years now been trying to grapple with the condition of assets across our entire city and have tried to come to a more strategic approach, and particularly avoiding council taking on more assets when our current assets are in the dire condition that they're in. I think that this is at risk of going against that policy, and it also, as the leaders and ultimately who have signed off that policy, sends very mixed messages to our officials who are trying to do the right thing in grappling with this issue. So I think we do need to stand firm here. I have absolute understanding and probably can feel the frustration of Murray on this. I don't think anyone around the table thinks that this is a bad idea or the likes. But it's come at a time where we do need to start being more principled around how we grapple with taking on new assets and managing assets in the future. And I've got no doubt that if the community really wants to see this happen, they will make it happen. I've no doubt, particularly from Murray, from Eastbourne as well, in arranging that with some form of other trust organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, did you have no? Okay. So we'll put it to a vote. Just before we do, I support the motion, and having been across the officers doing the work that we directed them to do on the assets, and there are many other assets that the community did not want to lose. We agreed to the principle of our asset management strategy, and part of it was bringing together within our council. We had a lot of little odds and ends and little agreements over the years that were really costing council. So the asset management strategy, as leaders, we agreed to that, and this is really applying that principle across all of the assets, or we will be in the future being questioned on each and every asset that we've got that means a lot to the community, which is difficult. So I've put the motion forward. Do I have a seconder? Okay. We've put debate. So I've put the motion forward. All of those in favour say aye. Those against?
And recorded, thank you.
Division?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of those in favour, hands up, aye. All those against? Oh, okay. Yeah.
So in favour? Hands up. So
Mayor Barry.
Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Morgan. Councillor Briggs.
Mayor Barry.
Yeah. Councillor Barrett. Councillor Tupou. Councillor Shaw. Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
Those against? Councillor Parkin and Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. 7-2.
So I declare the motion carried. Okay, so thank you everybody. Oh, sorry, yes. So we will wheel back on the same paper to number 4, which agrees to option 2, and this is in relation to the accessible toilet. Paragraph 35, to develop a highly accessible toilet on our own design, on the Bay Street site and manage access through a PIN number controlled by council. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett. Is there any debate? Councillor Parkin.
Kia ora. Looking at the changing places information, they're clearly using an RFID tag system. Having used RFID tag systems, and we use them on a regular basis as council, and thinking of forward and backwards compatibility, I would strongly recommend that we look at using an RFID system rather than a PIN number. It's much more functional. It's much more transparent. You can tell who's used it. You can ensure that the tag is only used by that person, and, well, within reason, whereas PIN numbers can be handed over to other people. And while I acknowledge the issues with changing places in terms of ongoing costs, I think the approach of using an RFID system is a much more efficient one than a PIN number. So I would ask, while I support this proposal, I would ask that officers look at RFID.
Any other debate? Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to assure the officers and the committee that the disabled community has been speaking, and what they are saying is that this facility is long overdue here in the Hutt City. Whereas some of the younger disabled people in our community can be taken into some public toilets. Up to date, there is nothing for the adult person with a severe disability. So this is looked upon as a godsend, if you like, but may I ask that when we continue further with these things, that there is more inclusion of the disabled community, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Briggs.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to give a couple of mentions to both former and current elected members for their work on this project. Former Deputy Mayor David Bassett, current Councillor Simon Edwards, current Glenda Barrett as well, and also the former Central Ward Community Panel did significant work on this in the past, and unfortunately it's fallen over a couple of times. So I'm really proud to see us get to this point where we're actually going to be having an accessible toilet for our adult community that need it, both those that live here in Te Awa Kairangi and those that are visiting as well, or friends and family. I know that when it's fallen over before in the past, there's been a lot of disappointment from those in the community as well as us around the table at the time. And so thank you, officers, for the perseverance and the resilience that kind of come forward with a solution that's going to work.
We're past questions. We're in debate. So I'm just going to add and to thank the officers for all the work on this, because it has been a very long process. And I particularly want to acknowledge Councillor Barrett, who has really championed this work, has constantly met with the disabilities community and has given great advice to inform us on the way forward. So thank you, officers. Thank you, Councillor Barrett, for your work on this. So I've moved the motion, which has been seconded. So those in favour, say aye. Aye. Those against? I declare the motion carried. What time is it? So we're going to wheel back now. Oh, sorry, apologies. If you just stay where you are, Arthur, we're going to go to item number 5. We don't need to take a break? I'll take a 2-minute. Some people might. Oh, apologies, Mayor Campbell.
No, I had the break. It's all good. I was just going to say I'm going to have to excuse myself to get back to council for the citizenship ceremony, but I may join you if time permits.
Yep, thank you. We're just waiting on Councillor Tupou and Councillor Shaw. Okay, so we're going to item 5, the recommendation of Kaunihera or Te Awa Kairangi Council of the adoption of the Reserves Investment Strategy, page 8 of the agenda. Have you got anything further to add, Arthur, to the report?
No, other than to say that obviously this is a key document for us in the future, so we are keen to move forward if we possibly can.
Members, do we have any questions? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for the report, Arthur. I really see where you're heading with this altogether. I've just got a couple of questions on the wording, and one of that is on page 47, where it mentions the population for Stoke Valley is around about 6.4. Population's actually 10,690 as per the 2023 census, so it's quite a few more people actually live in Stoke Valley. I'd like that change to be made. And also, it mentions there's a need to provide facilities focused on rangatahi, mainly for practising rugby. I feel a bit uncomfortable about one code being identified when there are a number of codes that will probably be looking for practice fields.
Dreadfully sorry. Yeah, the document is probably a year old now. It hasn't been massively reviewed, but we'd be looking at reviewing it on a reasonably regular basis as part of that 3-year approach. So we can make those changes anyhow on this draft, but we would be reviewing anyhow over the every 3 years primarily.
Any further questions? Okay, so I will get the recommendations up on the screen, please, and if just have a read yourself again of them before we second it, move it forward.
Chair, if you're comfortable just to have another recommendation there for officers to make any editorial changes, I think that gives them a chance to pick up Councillor Shaw's points as well and anything else they may note before finalising.
Yes, we will pick that up.
With that addition, I'm happy to be a seconder, Chair.
Okay, so Councillor Briggs, second. Is there any debate, discussion? If there's not, the Reserves Investment Strategy, this is essentially a rubber stamp exercise that the draft was approved for consultation, no changes were required due to feedback, and so this is us publishing the final. The projects list will be reviewed ahead for the next LTP and brought back to Council for approval. But if there's any further questions, we'll get the recommendation on for editorial. You can still put questions forward for the document. And they'll be reviewed at the LTP review point. We did get a question from Councillor Mitchell regards the trees, but we will provide that to him after the meeting. Yeah, okay. So I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye. All those against? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. We're going on to 6, and we've got Nicole as the, is that going to be you, Arthur? Page 7. So proposal for long-term leases on reserve land, page 77 of the agenda. Is that for you to speak to, Arthur?
Yeah, Nicole unfortunately can't be here, so I will act in her stead as best I can.
Okay, so we'll take the report as read. Does anybody have any extra questions? Pardon me. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. It's just a procedural one. Did these reports or the leases go to the community boards in the areas as well to be notified to the board people?
The ones that can be agreed by the community boards do. I don't think these necessarily do where it's a council decision, but perhaps that is a procedural change we may make in future, just so that the boards know what's going on in their own area.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Briggs.
Just apologies, I should have in the beginning of the meeting just reiterated my conflict of interest that's already written in my register, but I am a family member of the Waimata Squash Club. I'm not a member of the committee. However, I think just for transparency, I'll step aside from decision making so that there's no questions.
Noted. Any other late ones? No, okay. Okay, any further questions? Okay, so I'll move the motion that the committee notes and receives this report and to approves the granting of long-term leases subject to standard council terms and conditions to Hutt Valley Model Engineering Society, Wainuiomata Rugby Football Club, Wainuiomata Squash Club and Stop Out Sports Club. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parkin, sorry. Is there any debate? No. Put the motion forward. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? I declare the motion carried.
And
Thank you.
Please be noted I didn't participate. Thank you.
Okay, so item 7, page 80 of the agenda, Petone Wharf update. Arthur, do you have anything further to add to the report?
Through you, Chair. No, not really. Suffice to say that we're continuing the conversations with stakeholders, and we're just moving forward with it as best we can, at the pace we can.
Thank you. Members, any questions? No? Okay, so I'll move the motion and we'll get that put up on the screen. Notes the report, including the outline of work plan as attached. Notes that the officers will continue to engage with stakeholders and the community as it moves forward with the proposal. And 3, notes that the project will report to the Petone Project Steering Group and Major Project Steering Group quarterly and to the Communities Culture and Partnership Committee at key milestones and decision points. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis, thank you. I've moved the motion, which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? I declare the motion carried. So we will now move to item number 10. Yes, the Neighbourhoods and Communities Directors Report, page 101. Andrea? Director, Neighbourhoods and Communities, I'll ask you to cover off the report if there's anything you'd like to highlight or add.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of highlights to note there that some of our facilities that we've brought online in the last year or so are starting to win some awards, which is great, and it's great recognition for everyone involved in them, right through from elected members who made the decisions, the officers who've worked on them, and the community who've inputted into them and are now getting to enjoy them. So that's great to receive some recognition for those facilities. Also, just in the Parks and Reserves section, you'll see the sports field drainage work is making really good progress, that Hutt Park and Richard Prowse have been completed, and that the Nainai Park work is underway, and that's making a really significant difference to the playing surfaces there and to the experience of users. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, members? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Andrea, and congratulations on the awards. There was an awful lot of work that went into that, and it's great that we've been recognised nationally for Te Nānai Pō and Te Māko. Pretty substantial awards there. This is always one of my favourite reports. I think you've got some really good stuff in there, but I do have a couple of questions. One of them is around the rentable space at the Walter Nash, currently being used for the heritage collections. So I'm assuming that there'll be a loss of rental space for that. How long is it anticipated the heritage collection will be housed there?
Can you just remind me of the number that is in the paper? Thank you. So that'll be for the duration of the works at Petone Library. So while that program of work is underway, which is expected once it gets underway to be about a year. We would anticipate from here, I'm reluctant to put a number on it because we're still scoping the project, but probably 18 months.
I do have thank you for that. Another question on page 104, and it's about the Sanitarium Weet-Bix Challenge. And it's always been a huge event here in the Hutt City, but my question is that it was held at Naina Intermediate. I understand there were reasons around that, but I'm a bit disappointed that the likes of schools that were very close to Naina Intermediate didn't participate, and I don't know if they traditionally did, such as Avalon Primary, Taita Central, Pōmari School, Avalon Intermediate. So do we have any idea what those numbers compare with the event, the big event held at the Hutt Rec, and why some of these schools wouldn't participate in such a valuable exercise for their students?
So through you, Chair, no, I don't have those numbers, and obviously it's not our event, so we support it, but I can ask our team if they have any further information on that and pass it through.
Thank you. And just one more. On page 109, you referred to books and base. It's based Central Hutt. Does it reach out into the northern suburbs? Because I'm just aware that that program was particularly popular at the Taita shopping centre and the clubhouse there. So do we reach out to the northern suburbs for this program as well?
So I think this program started as a bit of a pilot, and all of our programs have been assessed to see whether they can be, how impactful they've been, how popular they've been, and what resource they require, and then we do look to scale them. So that'll be something that the team are looking at now, whether it can be scaled.
Thank you, and some congratulations again on some of the really good stuff there with the community feel-good programs that have been run. So thank you.
Councillor Parkin and then Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Kia ora. Yeah, like Councillor Shaw saying, there's some fantastic stuff happening within our communities. I'd like to draw note particularly to the new public toilet in Belmont Domain, but it does come with a request, and that is about future communication. The community, in this case, Belmont Residents Association, were notified that this was happening, but after it had been basically signed off and with no potential to add any input to it. I'm aware that it's unlikely that a community organisation is going to be able to have a huge amount of say in anything from this point of view, but in terms of actually ensuring that our communities feel listened to, actually letting them know that the plan is for something to happen, and just to double check that they can't see any major problems with it, e.g. location. There was a number of concerns raised about, or questions and queries raised about why the pathway was instigated as well, and I think that could have been more clearly communicated. I'm guessing it's a link between the toilet and the playground, but again, it's that communication with our communities and just requesting that that's encouraged.
What was your question?
Is it possible to encourage the pre-communication before assets are installed?
Through you, Chair, I'll answer that. The answer is yes. I think this has been a legacy project for us, so we've perhaps not been fully aware of the past, and we probably weren't fully aware that it hadn't already been debated and discussed. But certainly our should we say, our drive moving forward is to make sure we encourage the community to get involved. That way, we get a better result all the way around. Better result for us, better result for council, and a better result for the residents. So we will take that observation and we'll make sure that we make sure we do those things moving forward.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. And yes, it is a great report. There's so much happening in the city, all these jobs and projects going on. It's wonderful. I've got a question about drainage as well, and I know it's in the next paper, the work plan of coming works for the year. Is it possible to see the 3-year, every year, a program that you can actually see how we're tracking toward the 3-year goal? Because in the drainage area, I know there was 2 parks raised, and it was HW Short and Petone Rec. for work, and I just wanted to know, I'm getting hit up, when are they happening? And I can't see it in the annual, plan.
Yeah, so again, through you, Chair, probably one for me. We have got a programme that I'm pretty sure we could share. The other thing we're keen to try and do, and we're talking to finance about this, is look at the opportunity for multi-year tendering, in which case we would probably, at the start of the long-term plan, have a clear, should we say, work programme that we could put in front of council and the community, save us costs, save us time, and obviously would allow our contractors who might be doing that to have a regular flow of work. So we're looking at those things, but I'm pretty sure we can provide that information as to what is due and when it's due. I've certainly seen that.
And just to add on a bouquet too, it's a sort of a bouquet for the Galbraith Gully work. That's all been repathed. It's not in the report, it's been missed. I just couldn't see it there. But man, it's a real steep climb now. I don't know who's done the gradient on it, but it's wonderful. It's all safe to walk on, so it is good. So thank you.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, I'm going to move the motion that the committee receives and notes the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Before we move it, I just want to thank you for the work, Andrea, on all the work in the team. And to Arthur and Stefan, thank you for all your work. You spent most of the meeting up here, so there's a lot of work happening. So put the motion forward, which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? I declare the motion carried. So we'll go on to the last item. The forward program for 2025, it's on page 130. Does any member have a question? No? I'm going to move the motion that the forward program 2025 for Communities, Culture and Partnership Committee be received and noted. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shaw. Those in favour, I'll put the motion forward. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I declare the motion carried. I've received no questions, so we will bring up the closing karakia on screen. Please feel free to join in. Inoi tātou, mai te tohi rangi ki te tohu nuku, te aho i roto, marama i roto, tupu mauri ora ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everybody, and thank you for all your work.